Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. Please enjoy this video on the Political Voices Network.
Actually, Judge Chutkan's, the evidentiary hearings. Now, obviously, Donald is trying to get around the mini trial situation. Do you think that he has a shot at that or no?
No. As I said, because Judge Chutkan is presiding over this case, he, will, fail, in his effort to shut down Judge Chutkan's hearings that she has basically been directed to conduct by the Supreme Court. Donald Trump has met his match in Judge Chutkan. Of this, I am sure. I know I've told you all before, I used to try murder cases against Tanya Chutkan when she was a public defender in the courts of Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you, she is strong, she is fierce, she is no nonsense. And I have followed her career once she was appointed to the bench. And I've said it before, Judge Chutkan don't play. And she's not going to play Donald Trump's games. There will be hearings. They are likely going to be evidentiary hearings where we see people testify. But you know what? Worst case scenario, for some reason, witnesses like Mike Pence don't testify. And remember, there are dozens of Republicans who went into the grand jury and testified about the crimes of Donald Trump.
Right.
We don't know what they said yet, but they're waiting in the wings, ready to testify. But if they don't testify, fine. Introduce their grand jury transcripts. Those become matters of public record, and we all get to pore over them. One way or another, we're going to learn a whole lot more in the coming weeks and months about the crimes of Donald Trump as a result of these hearings that will be held in D.C.
Yay. I'm so happy. Now, with regard to the New York stuff, because the sentencing is in September now, some people are thinking that because of the SCOTUS ruling that it's a gift to Trump. I believe it's Lisa Rubin said that he could succeed in evading accountability. His brief to overturn the criminal verdict because those pieces illustrate why all the statements and actions were official actions. He could argue that. That's what his brief is arguing. Do you buy her argument that she says that the majority never applies this to evidence? It also rejects the special counsel's argument that various procedures during the trial or on appeal would be enough to resolve immunity related. Basically, I'm confused.
Yeah. So my view of this is almost all of his conduct is not only unofficial, but it did not take place while he was president. It took place while he was a candidate. Now, granted, once he was sworn in, he was writing reimbursement checks to Michael Cohen. In no rational view of the world or the law are those official acts of the president, repaying his co-conspirator who paid money to cover up an affair with a porn star to try to cheat in a presidential election. That's not exactly what the founding fathers envisioned would be official acts of a United States president. I am not at all worried that somehow the Supreme Court ruling will undermine the New York conviction. It won't.
Okay, because somebody was saying, look, if he wrote a check to the DWP to pay his power bill while Department of Water and Power, to pay that bill while sitting in the White House, that's not an official presidential act. That's just him paying his bills, not that he pays them. But that is still him just paying his bills. So that wouldn't be an official act. So I hope you're right. I hope Lisa
I hope I'm right,
wrong.
too. I think I'm right because, writing your water or electric bill, checks for those is one thing. But writing checks to kind of clean up the tail end of your criminal conspiracy is really not an official act.
I would hope not.
And no pun intended by tail end.
So we just heard AOC bring up the articles of impeachment against Alito and Thomas. Your thoughts on this? I think it's great. I don't know if it's going anywhere, but I think it's great.
Yeah, so it was kind of the 1-2 punch because it was AOC introducing articles of impeachment, which I think, frankly, are long overdue. And then also Senator Whitehouse asking Merrick Garland to appoint a special counsel to investigate the possible crimes of Alito and Thomas. And, when I saw these two developments, I thought back to my days as the chief of homicide at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. I always told the incoming homicide prosecutors that, it's really more important to try cases than to win cases. And, when you have certain duties and obligations as a public servant, including a member of Congress, you need to lean into addressing the abuses of government officials. That includes Supreme Court justices. So when people jump right to the end game of, the articles of impeachment won't pass in the House or he won't be convicted in the Senate, it doesn't matter. What you do is you do your job and you try to address abuses by high government officials. And now we have at least two ways that those abuses can be addressed: with a special counsel to investigate their suspected crimes, and with articles of impeachment to hold them accountable for the abuses, the corruption, the grift that we have all seen. There is rot at the top on the Supreme Court, and at least there are now two ways that we're going to try to get at it.
I agree. I think that it takes some cojones for her to have done that, because she knows that we all know that with Mike Johnson, I mean, he won't even bring a vote to the floor with that. We know that. They're already having issues with trying to impeach Biden, and they want to do that. So, I'm glad that she did that, because at least it's on the record that she wants to do that. And she went on to the other articles against Alito. 14, please.
The second resolution includes the following impeachment articles against Justice Alito: one count of refusal to recuse from cases in which he had a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party before the court, and one count of failure to disclose financial incomes, gifts, reimbursements, property interests, among other information.
I think that's good, getting it on the record.
Yeah. And there are laws in place that say, you have to make financial disclosures.
Right.
That is part of the federal law. I had to do it every year, Jody, and frankly, it was the bane of my existence, because these forms are really tedious to fill out. But I'll tell you, every single year, I was scared to death that I might put a decimal in the wrong place when I was, disclosing things. And of course, we don't get to take gifts as federal prosecutors. Right. We have, I think, a $20 limit per year of gifts we're allowed to take. So let me tell you, sometimes the victims, or in murder cases, the family members would, for example, send me a thank you gift after I prosecuted the case involving the murder of their loved one. Right. And it was flowers or a box of candy. The first thing I did is I went to our ethics officer and I would say, am I permitted to accept this or not? It sounds petty. It sounds ridiculous.
It does.
But we take that very seriously. Look at what Thomas and Alito have accepted, to the tune of millions of dollars, including from people who ultimately had business or interests in front of the Supreme Court. That's obscene.
Right.
And that kind of stuff should absolutely be investigated. It should be prosecuted if they are shown to have violated the law, and they should be impeached. That's the way our government is supposed to work.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, $20 though, that's not a whole lot of Starbucks. Not that I drink it.